this back and forth. So to get started here, I just kind of want to ask what your name is and give us like a 30-second, minute-long spiel about what you're working on or what your background is in entrepreneurship.
Hello everyone, my name is Abdul Malik Muhammad. I go by Malik, or as Americans like to call me, Malik. I am the founder of a startup called GemBiz. GemBiz is essentially a tool and platform for small business owners that streamlines their process of establishing themselves online, eliminating redundancies, need for having websites, review-based platforms, and a bunch of other tools. But the way we do it, we use more of a narrative-driven approach to the discovery of small business owners, in which we highlight the heartbeat behind each business. And a little bit about me besides that, I was born and raised in Stockholm, Sweden. Came to the US to play football, ended up graduating San Jose State 2023, and decided to pursue GemBiz full-time earlier this year. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Adi. Thank you so much for the invite, by the way, Eli. I'm a second year at Berkeley. I'm studying nutrition, and I grew up in New York my whole life. And I'm founder of Hosanna, which is a startup that is trying to make protein bars exciting with diverse flavor profiles and beautiful packaging. Here's actually a test batch of our first ever SKU, which we launched, which is our Cinna Vanilla. Thank you. We're launching a mango turmeric and a matcha latte as well this fall. We have backing from some pretty cool companies in the CPG and food space, and I'm just happy to be here today.
Thank you. So I'm wearing kind of two hats today. So I'm a panelist. My name's Max Roth. I also work for the SpartUp incubator program. I'm the ecosystem manager. So you guys may have seen me at some of the other speaker series or events, kind of running around and helping Eli with some of the intros. But I'm really excited to be on the panel for the first time at this event. I graduated from San Jose State with 2 degrees. So I started my undergrad. I'm a mechanical engineer. And then I got a degree in innovation with the College of Graduate Studies. So it's entrepreneurship, intellectual property, and engineering. I'm actually not a founder right now. I work for a startup. I work for a med device startup company in Menlo Park. I'm a fluidics engineer there. So I work on blood contacting components in a med device. And then also my job here at the SpartUp Incubator program. So I get to work with a lot of different founders. And yeah, hopefully I'll be able to have some exciting things to add about ideation and validation, but I am proud to say that I've been a part of 3 winning teams for SVIC over the last 4 years. 4 as in I did not participate last year. So excited to talk a little about SVIC and some of the strategies to win some of these student-led competitions. And then going back to my ecosystem manager hat, for everybody who is standing, I know with this room, this is an awesome room, we have awesome light and everything, but it can be a little bit noisy out in the rest of the library, so please fill up the rest of the chairs up front, and we'll try and be as loud as we can for you guys.
Thank you, everybody. Let's give a round of applause for our panelists and the cool stuff that they're working on. Before we dive into the questions, I do want to reiterate, come on up, grab a seat at the front. If it's ever not loud enough, let us know and I'll turn the volume up. We're also trying something new for this speaker series. So we have a QR code up here. If you have a question at any point during the panel, you don't have to wait until the end to ask anymore. You can throw that, scan that QR code, throw up a question, and I'll kind of try and incorporate it into the panel itself. If you have a really specific question, please try and connect with the panelists after, get their information. Yeah. So to kick it off, we're focusing on ideation and validation today. A big part of that is talking to people. Getting validation from investors, people that are interested in your product. When you came up with your idea, or an idea for a competition, or the company you're working on right now, did that come up internally, or did you kind of talk to people? Like walk us through how that first idea popped into your head.
For me personally, it wasn't one of those aha moments. I would say it was more of a collection of events and experiences throughout life, and combination with frustration. As a consumer myself, I love supporting small business owners and small businesses just in general. But I just thought it was so difficult to find the businesses in which I wanted to support online. And when I did find those businesses, I felt like their online presence didn't necessarily reflect who they were. And, you know, because of that, because of the fact that it was so difficult, it led to me sort of resorting to convenience and, you know, whatever was easiest, going to big chains and whatnot. But obviously, me being a supporter of small businesses, I felt like I was sort of defeating the purpose. And I remember when I was at San Jose State, I took a class back in 2019. It was a big data class, and we were analyzing Yelp data sets and organizing data and stuff. And my curiosity for review-based platforms started growing, and I never really understood review-based platforms because they never made any sense to me. I used to always ask myself questions like, if someone has a negative experience with valet, why should that matter to someone that doesn't drive a car, right? Or I have siblings, for example, and you know, my mom, if she would cook something, I might like it, but my siblings might not like it. That doesn't mean that my mom's a bad cook, right? So I started asking these questions, and then I quickly realized that it wasn't necessarily just a lack of visibility among small business owners, but it was also a lack of sort of ability of controlling their own narrative online. And I think those collection of events and experiences sort of planted the seed for me to pursue Gemini's and create a tool that sort of simplified the process of these business owners to establish themselves online. So yeah, that's what it started for me.
So for me, it was an internal issue in the beginning because when I was losing weight in high school, when I lost 15 pounds, like most teenagers, we get really heavy into protein products and specifically protein bars. And it was just, again, it was something that came to me because I experienced the issue and I was like, damn, all protein bars are kind of the same. They all kind of taste the same and they use the same flavors. So for me, that was that's kind of where the idea came from. And then it was further validated with testing with like my family and then friends and then students and professors and whatever I ended up doing after. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Yeah, for the 3 different teams that I participated with SVIC for, and I'll start with those competitions. There's been a few more outside, like the senior project for my mechanical engineering project. We won Best Senior Project of the Year in 2023, and some other competitions that maybe I'll get to, like, you know, subtle brag about later. For the SVIC competitions, the first one that I did, I was recruited into a team, and the person who started that company was a koala rehabilitation, like, animal modular structure, and she did a semester abroad in Australia and saw like some pretty amazing, I guess not amazing, pretty horrifying, like just staggering stats on koala rehabilitation. Of koalas who enter any sort of rehabilitation, over 50% die, like inherently, just by being rehabilitated, regardless of how significant their illnesses are. And so it was something that was very personal to her, and I just joined as a mechanical engineering kind of team member for that, so I was not at the root of the ideation. But for the next 2, one of them was my senior design project. So we did a electric vehicle conversion kit to convert any car into a short range electric vehicle, right? So the idea is like you could take your Civic or your Corolla, that's like an early 2000s model, and for less than $10,000 you would get 100,000 miles more range out of your vehicle by doing this EV swap. And so we spent like several months working on this out of necessity because we had to graduate with our senior design project, and the whole way we were thinking, you know, how could we turn this into a real product and make this commercializable and have some sort of entrepreneurial thread through this project. And it was really a team effort that was made possible by a single resource that someone had, and they had access to Zero Motorcycles electric motors. And so just by having that kind of alleyway, we were able to kind of brainstorm around it and come up with something really cool.
The one kind of reoccurring theme I heard there is that all of these ideas were kind of building off of other things that had already existed. One thing a lot of people in the incubator ask about is like, I have an idea for a certain marketplace or a certain thing, but somebody's already done it. Like, can I still do this? How did you kind of go into that and tackle the idea of like, I'm competing with somebody? It's not a new marketplace. Like, what was it like to, you know, you're putting yourself up against big companies, like, how did that feel? How did you work around that?
Yeah, you know, the launch director for the incubator program, he's here. Michael Ash, he's also a professor, College of Business. He would be a phenomenal person to respond to this question, but I've heard him echo the sentiment over and over that a startup's biggest strength is being stronger, faster, or cheaper. And so when you think about having a competitive edge in competition, first off, having competition is great. It means that people are spending money to solve this problem. And so whenever you enter a field that has no competition, if your pitch for why your company is going to work is that there's no competition, you're going to have a harder time convincing anyone that there's a market for it in the first place, because if there's no competition, there's no money to be made there, right? At least not yet. And so entering a space with competition being stronger, faster, or cheaper, and I guess when I say stronger, I just am implying better, right? Those are your common competitive edges, but it can also be things like the relationships that you have with certain customers or strategic partners in that space that can give you the leverage to really, make what you're doing more valid for a path to success.
Yeah, that was pretty good. So again, you don't have to, whenever you're going into a startup or whatever you're ideating, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We've seen this case study by case study in every single field, and even in the food industry. You just have to find your niche and find just a little twist, whether it's a cultural innovation or an efficiency innovation or something along those lines, where you can just twist it a little bit to find your own little niche and your own customer basis. And it's up for you and your team and whatever investors you work with to accelerate enough in that field to make the change that you want to make. So getting over that phase of like, oh, there's way too many competitors. I've been told at least like 2,000 times by investors and customers, like, why would you go into like one of the most competitive spaces in food? And I say, it's one of the fastest growing spaces, and all we have to do is just twist one little thing, and I know we can get a share of that. So yeah, that's kind of what I think.
I love competition. I think it's amazing. As a former athlete too, I thrive whenever there's competition and pressure. And there's, like he said, there's you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and solutions could always be improved. In our case, for example, when I found out that on average a small business owner would have to juggle between 4 to 6 different service providers just to sort of establish themselves online, it sort of felt a bit redundant. And I always ask myself, there needs to be ways in which this could be improved. Like if you're a little cafe, why do you have to juggle all these different service providers, right? And I found out that 1/3 of all the small business owners don't even have a website, and even the ones that do have a website doesn't truly capture who they are. So I was like, there needs to be a way to simplify this, to make this whole process streamlined and easier. And if you're a small business owner, the only thing you want to do is offer your product and service to your community, right? And I wanted to figure out a way in which they could remove all those stressors and having to deal with websites, search engine optimization, review-based platforms, all these things, but still help them establish a strong online presence without all that digital noise, and just strip it down and just take a step back and make it so much easier.
I think it's, for me at least, it's super cool to hear that like competition is good, not having to reinvent the wheel. Like these are all kind of things that, at least when I first thought about startups, were really scary to me. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like it's a little bit, it's still really hard, but it is simpler than it might seem. You don't always have to invent a new technology, especially not a new groundbreaking technology. There's ways to get into a space kind of regardless. So seeing some questions pop up from y'all, thank you so much. I'm gonna get to these in a second. But while we're still on ideation and that initial first steps, what was the first thing that you got from a customer or somebody you showed it to that made you feel like you were going up the right track, like kind of validated the earliest steps?
I think for me, just the ease of use in terms of the platform in itself. One of the big issues that I noticed with small business owners, especially when it came to review-based platforms, mainly platforms like Yelp, crazy thing, which I found out as I was asking them questions, was the fact that people could leave reviews even though they had not visited the establishment, right? And because of our inherent negativity bias, you can read one negative review and that could outweigh 10 positive ones. And from an empathy standpoint, I come from a family of small business owners. I know the sacrifices that small business owners put into building their businesses, etc. So, having that one review that is, completely unfair and could put a business at a significant disadvantage, right? And I think that was one of those things that started, like, it was sort of a repeated pain point. And, you know, businesses would tell me, for example, when it came to controlling their online narrative in terms of reviews, that they would have positive reviews filtered out and then negative reviews sort of amplified. And they couldn't figure out why that was the case. And, you know, the service providers would say, well, that's just our algorithm. So I would say that was one of those things that, you know, started, in which I started hearing from many of the small business owners. And then also just the fact that they didn't have the time, they were already very stretched thin. You know, the average age of a small business owner is 54. The average 54-year-old probably got a house, mortgage, kids, family, a lot of responsibility. So the last thing that they want to deal with is having to go through a whole learning curve of how to optimize themselves online, especially in this digital space. It's very, you know, ever evolving. There's always new trends, new things coming out there, and it's just very overwhelming. So I think that was also a big thing in which I kept hearing from all the business owners in which I started engaging with.
So for me, it was like two main indicators. So when I was first starting out in my dorm kitchen, I would sell in farmers markets to obviously just test the product, right? Just product market fit and whatnot. That first main indicator was dictated by the fact that I was selling out every batch that I did out of my kitchen. So even though I was doing like $500, $600 grocery runs, the fact that I was able to move the product and that people would tell me on a daily or a weekly basis, like, hey, that you actually have something here, and you know what you're doing is kind of cool. That was really cool to hear from farmers markets, because people are obviously, like, there's a complete variety of people, right? Diversity of people. So that was number one. And then number two is when I first started raising money, my sort of like pre-seed family and friends round, what I would do is I would go to a gated community, like a private gated community, and then I lied saying that I was their neighbor. And then I went door to door pitching my idea. And when I raised my first 50K from that, and convincing people to write me checks based off of a kitchen product and the direction I wanted to take and the flavors I wanted to pursue, that was huge for me in my first like few months of raising money. So that was a huge indicator for me.
Yeah, that's super cool. Thank you for sharing.
I have a lot of questions for you after the event, but we can talk about that later. So I think in Ideation, one of the like themes that has gone through the different projects that I've worked on, and I also want to clarify, like when I talk about projects versus startups, I think a project transitions to being a startup once you start developing a real product. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're prototyping. That might mean that you're in some sort of like customer discovery or validation, but like all of the amazing things that I've gotten to work on and had like a lot of fun and learned a lot of things about, I would still call them projects. So I don't know if that added anything for anybody, but I haven't truly started my first startup yet. So anyways, the core theme for all my projects is some sort of inevitability. Like if you can create the argument in a very convincing manner where you're not actually stringing together multiple sentences to convince someone that whatever you're building is inevitable, you're likely on a pretty solid path. So the two projects that I worked on that I think people loved the most were the electric vehicle conversion kit, right? And it's like, hey, look, we're in a society where we're building things to be replaced. And if you can upcycle, the company was called Upcycle Electric. If you can upcycle an older car that's resale value is less than $10,000 and get 100,000 more miles, it has a 100-mile range and it doesn't go faster than 100 miles an hour, like eventually something like that will exist where you will be able to retrofit your vehicle to be cleaner for the environment, right? It's a generally, like actually the government at the time, this is in 2023, electric vehicle conversion kits were actually greenlit for EV federal credits, so California and federal government subsidies. And I was like, look, like this is just something that is going to exist as we continue to become a more green country, and as like vehicles continue to be more and more electric, right? Some of those things maybe, that argument honestly might be harder in 2025 than it was in 2023, but the inevitability thread there made a lot of sense to a lot of people. The other one is, and this was the one that won SBIC Best Pitch Competition in 2024, was a company called Concussion Coach. And actually Anna and Drew are the two founders. You guys may have met them before. They are both SpartUp members, and they're still working on the company right now. When we came up with that idea, it was essentially an AirTag-like sensor that you would put on the back of your helmet, and it would just light up if you sustained an impact that may have warranted a concussion. And so to have a concussion, the impact is 90 G's of force. And the idea was essentially peace of mind for parents who, for their young athletes or youth and amateur sports competitors, right? Or snowboarding, BMX, skateboarding, whatever it is. And the thread there was also really easy, is to say, look, like at some point there will be some sort of indicator that will be on every kid's helmet when they're playing football or skating or snowboarding that will say, hey, you hit your head really hard and you need to maybe take a break or see a professional on the sideline or go to the doctor, and probably not the best idea to get right back out there. And so that was something that, especially with parents, right, people who are the judges of these competitions, and actually Anna and Drew are actively fundraising right now as they're fundraising, there is this element of, okay, this makes sense and something like this will 100% exist in the future. It's just, are you guys on the right path to solve the problem, and are you the right team that's going to be able to do it?
Thank you. Kind of jumping right into that team aspect. I want to ask about the team, and maybe not a co-founder, but people that have helped you along the way, especially at the super early idea stage. So like, when you first started a project or company, like, who were the people that you really needed to meet that made things start being possible? One thing I really liked from the responses to that question were almost all of those things were things you don't need money to do, like going door to door, talking to small business owners, seeing these problems online. None of that requires capital. And you kind of led onto things that got you capital, but very, very few of those things besides groceries actually cost money. So who are the people that you met early on that helped make things happen, especially without money?
Yeah, I think the thing that's most impactful in a lot of ways is the people you meet that help you not do anything. And what I mean by that is the best advice you're gonna hear are people who say they hate your idea. And not hate it as in like they're just like absolute haters and they just don't want to see you succeed, but the people who are generally like devil's advocate for your benefit. They are someone who is in your life that cares about you, they want to see you succeed, and it doesn't necessarily mean that they don't believe you can be a good entrepreneur or that you can be successful working on this startup, but it's the people who say like, hey, this EV conversion kit's awesome, but who are you gonna actually sell it to? Which I would respond, everybody. Like, everybody's gonna be a customer for this. And then having to have like real conversations where you're like, oh my gosh, no one actually wants to buy this right now, and we're years away from actually being able to develop this. Like, those are the real conversations with future customers and mentors, are the people who help you understand where your biggest efforts need to be going forward before you actually find something real.
So for me initially, in finding people who can help you for free, I just use the internet. Like, you go on PitchBook, you go on LinkedIn, you cold DM and you cold email everybody and their mom in their industry until they respond to you, or until you get someone that you can talk to in the industry. Like, only 5 months into our company, which we haven't even launched a real product yet, I got a response from this guy named Ryan, who happens to be the CMO at Stellar Snacks, and he was actually on the founding team of Vitamin Water before it sold for $4 billion to Pepsi, or I forgot where it sold to, but doing that for as long as possible is super duper crucial, and it can eventually lead to a better relationship. You can take a lot of meetings with people who are industry experts for free, just by describing your story in your email and just being honest with them and asking them like legitimate good questions, and you don't know what's going to come out of that. And from that, even I've cold emailed hundreds of people and probably only gotten less than 20 responses, but out of those 20 people, those 2 people, including Ryan, are now on our cap table. So I think it's super important in the beginning to just utilize the resources you have online. They're all out there, like literally all out there. You can find their email, you can scrape it, and just reach out to them. And the worst that happens is you don't get a response, but it'll truly help you. And most case scenarios, they will want to help you. So yeah.
For me, as far as sort of building and creating a team, just for context, currently right now we're a team of 6, and every single one of the teammates that I have for this, current and former students at San Jose, so there was always that San Jose tie. Obviously, going to school here and utilizing the resources, that definitely helped in terms of mentors and advisors and stuff like that. I think a lot of them I got from leveraging the San Jose State community, which was a great help, and then people in which I met throughout the journey of my life, all the way from Sweden and then back to the U.S. But yeah, I think at least for me, that's how it was.
I have one thing I want to add. So, echoing what you said, one of the things that I've said at speaker series before as a moderator is one of your most amazing tools right now as a founder is a @sjsu.edu email address. So Eli and I went to TechCrunch several years ago, and we met these guys who were starting this company, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are students at San Jose State?" And we're like, "Yeah, we're students." And they're like, "I would give anything for your email address." And we were like, "That's a weird way to ask, to talk to us, asking for our number or whatever." We're like, "Okay, this is a customer discovery thing." And no, when they started their company when they were graduating from Berkeley. And as a senior, they would cold email all these different people in industry, cold email customers, investors, and everyone wants to help a student who wants to learn, right? And better themselves, better their society, whatever. You can even call it a school project, whatever it is. People are happy to respond to someone with an @edu email address. And as soon as he graduated and he started using his, whatever name @company email, spam. No responses. Everyone thinks that he's out for, try and pull one over on him. He's gaming them at some point. And so leveraging your student email for those types of networking kind of efforts, that's awesome.
Just want to add one little thing. Even going further on that, one of my main subject lines for emails that I cold email to this day is it literally says second year at Berkeley, looking to talk about protein or something along that line. Just want to essentially that even more. So you could literally put it in your subject line for something that they want to respond to.
I want to add to that as well.
Yeah.
Going off of what they just said. Early on, when I was sort of trying to validate my idea, and I would just approach these small business owners, they didn't want to deal with me, right? But I sort of switched up my approach, and I was like, "Oh, I'm a student," and all of a sudden they sort of let their guards down, and they wanted to actually give me a chance to talk and listen to me. So yeah, like they said, take advantage of your student emails. Part of the reason why I got members on my team that are still in school.
I won't make you guys. I won't take the mic back. I'll be quick. If you're an alumni or if you're affiliated with San Jose State, but you're not actively a student, you don't have an @sjsu email address, talk to Eli and talk to myself, because there's levers we can pull. We can invite someone that you need to meet to be a speaker on the panel. You know what I mean? We can invite them to be a mentor in our mentorship program. If you don't have an SJSU email, we do, and we are more than happy to help you make those connections by leveraging whatever we can pull within the incubator program to help you guys succeed. It's literally why we exist here.
Yeah, I think.
Thank you.
One really cool thing about startups and businesses is that maybe not, enterprise corporations, but people that are not that far along love to help each other. And they also love more than anything to talk about their business. So if you give somebody a chance to talk about their business, they're gonna set up a meeting with you.
Yeah.
I've had some founders come and tell me hey, it was actually Philip in the third row here. I had a phone call that went super long, and the guy was super excited to talk to him. And it didn't feel like you were, extracting value out of somebody or, taking advantage of them. They actually love to help. That's why a lot of people reply to emails and use LinkedIn. So just ask, and yeah, like Max said, ask us to help us help you by letting us know what you need. I want to kind of jump into some of the questions that you folks were wonderful enough to submit on this forum. Please submit a few more. I think as far as ideation goes, I'm going to go to the ideation ones, and then I'll go to the more off-topic ones after. Let's see. People seem to want to know what advice you have for student founders. So that was a lot of advice for student founders, but more on the juggling responsibilities and school side. how did you actually start a business when you were in school or right after? How did that time work out?
I think it all comes down to just proper planning. You know, I was very fortunate enough to be a student athlete, so I had a lot of responsibilities in which I had to juggle as soon as I stepped foot in this country. And I guess that sort of came natural to me. But I think, you know, anything, I mean, you got 24 hours a day. I think if you plan properly, one thing that really helps me, might sound very simple, but just writing things down. It will sort of help you figure out what it is you need to do and, you know, sort of plan accordingly and balance your day-to-day. And I think that will, once you actually do that and put things down on paper, you'll actually realize that you have a lot more time than you think. So yeah.
So as a current student and founder, I think there's a whole discussion about work-life balance and oh, like there's this perfect world where you have that perfect balance. I don't think that's real, to be honest. Like, I don't really believe in it. However, to combat the struggle of working on a startup and doing school and doing sports at the same time, let's say, it's prioritizing something in your life and implementing it every single day to make sure that you're level-headed. So for me, it's like hitting the gym every single day and at least doing 30 minutes of cardio. Like, I know it sounds very basic and very on trend, but for me, like, prioritizing that literally every single day, whether I have meetings all day till 6 or 7 or 9 or whatever it is, right? It's always getting that in every single day. The truth is that it's going to be really hard balancing, and it's not going to be easy at first, and it's still not easy, I'll admit it. But there are things that you can find and you can implement in your schedule and your student. There is going to be time where you can, you know, whether it's time to yourself to really just reset and just find that thing that levels your head. But yeah, it's going to be difficult in the beginning for sure.
Yeah, I've had the time for both of them to answer, to think of a good response, and I still don't really have one. Like, this is, finding a real balance in your life is so specific to you as an individual person and how well you are at completing the tasks that you have to do with everybody else as a student, right? Like, you're in a class with somewhere between 15 and 100 different people, and you all have the same expectations. And for some people, it's gonna take a couple hours a week, and for some people, they have to work like it's the hardest thing they've ever done just to pass that class. And everyone in this room is probably somewhere on that spectrum, right? Like, you might be on one end or another, and for me, like, I've certainly had classes as a mechanical engineer that were like extremely difficult for me. And like, not just difficult, but like, when you talk about how things can be difficult for you as a student and as a student founder, you have time commitments, and you also have emotional burden and time commitments. Like, I was talking to Nolan, who's in the front row, I'm sorry to call him out, but he's an engineering student right now. He's taking thermodynamics, differential equations, fluid dynamics, and regular dynamics. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I was thinking about that in my head, and I was like, man, differential equations for me took up the mental stress of 3 classes. Maybe it didn't take up more time than any of the other classes. The amount of time that I spent just like thinking about that class and doing the, like, I'd be out with, like, you know, you guys, this hopefully is relatable and doesn't just make me sound like an ass. But like, I'd be out at like a dinner for like a family dinner, like my girlfriend's family, and I'd be like, man, I should be doing work right now. Like, this is like, I should be like studying for this class. Like, I have a midterm coming up. Like, this isn't where I should be for the 4 hours of this like Saturday or Sunday. And like, those things were like, they stress me out. And like, as I've graduated with my degree now, I still have a lot of like things that are on my plate. But like, now that that burden's gone for me, I realize like how heavy that was, and it's one of those things that like, it's just not easy. Like, I wish I had a trick to share with you guys, but when I was a student, I was working 20 to full time mostly, and when I had actual classes during the semester, I usually hovered around 20, 25. And then as a graduate student, I was doing classes and working full time, and trying to do all of these projects on the side and hopefully turn something into a startup. And yeah, I was always thin. I was always super spread thin, and there was things that I had to stop, and you know, because I couldn't give it my all. But I think like writing things down, having some things to kind of anchor and center yourself is great advice. And this is like the classic, like, you should talk to an advisor in the SpartUp Incubator program, you should talk to a mentor in the SpartUp Incubator program, you should talk to Eli or myself if you have this question and want to kind of talk about like your personal struggles, because it's such an individualistic thing. But like, there really is no trick for how to manage being overbooked and spread thin, but there is no better time. Like it doesn't necessarily get easier, right? You're going to graduate, you're going to get a job, you're going to work full time, and you're not necessarily going to be able to carve out many more hours than you have now.
I'm going to interpret some of these questions into my own question, following up on that. And it's, how did you go from kind of jumping off from like, you spent all day thinking about something versus actually doing it? That's a really hard pivot that a lot of founders that we work with have, like going from having an idea to actually doing it. And I know we've talked about talking to customers, going door to door, like doing the research, building the things, making the protein bars, but like just in general, how do you start doing things? I know it's super broad, but it's a real struggle that a lot of people have.
Oh my God, yeah, I mean, that's the epitome of procrastination, right? Is like, the one thing is, for how many people here, don't be mad at me for making you raise your hands. How many people are actually working on a startup right now? Okay, most of the people in the room. I'm sure you guys think about it more than 1 hour of the day. I was gonna say double-digit hours, and I think that's probably valid and fair for most of you, but somewhere on the order of like 5 to 10, 12 hours of the day, it's on your mind to some extent. I'm sure for, I mean, I don't know, what do you guys think? What's your hour estimate? All day?
All day, whatever I'm going to sleep.
Okay, I shortchanged it. All day, every hour you're awake, you're thinking about your startup. You don't get credit for that. Like no investor, no customer, no co-founder, no employee of yours is gonna give you credit for that. And that takes a lot of your mental capacity and your energy and your time. And that's not something that anyone appreciates. Now, I mean, it's great. Like if you're not thinking about it, I guess that's a bigger red flag that you're not as dedicated, invested, or excited about your idea, and like that's potentially a different problem, and maybe you should look to pivot or find a different problem to solve. But doing things is how you get credit, right? Like when you want to translate this one-to-one for the students who are asking how do I do this as a student founder, you get credit for doing your homework, passing your quizzes, passing your midterms, and passing your finals. The equivalent for that with startups is going into a gated neighborhood and going door to door trying to sell your protein bars. Like that's your midterm right there. And we, Audi passed, like flying colors, right? That's phenomenal. Malik is in New York going door to door to different small businesses trying to sign them up for GemBiz. You get credit for that. You don't get credit for sitting at home and making like some pretty amazing plans for how you're gonna do these things. At some point, you just have to go for it and fail. Our mentorship program, Eli and I worked on getting our mentorship program to a better state of functionality for months, like in here, right? We'd talk about it, we had meetings about it, and then finally we were like, we just need to email everybody. We're just gonna send out emails every single week and let them know who applied, and we will just manually take these emails and we'll connect people and we will go through everything. We don't get that much, that many applications for mentorship where we can't actually handle it. And since then, every single week pretty much, we're matching mentors with mentees. We're doing double-digit hours every week, and we're super proud of that. And it's not the prettiest product, it's not like industry standard, it's not how it should work next year, but it works great for right now, and we're matching students with mentors, so.
So last week, I was in Malibu actually at a founder and investor event just for food and bev companies. And I happened to meet Steven, and Steven is the founder of Poppy, which I'm sure you guys might know, but it's a better for you soda brand that sold to Pepsi for $2 billion last year. And one thing that he told me is his best piece of advice he's ever gotten, ever since building a company, is taking a step and then fixing it. And what he means by that is like doing what it takes to progress every single day or every single week in your company rather than perfecting every single little step and planning it out. So instead of perfecting a business plan or perfecting some doc or some marketing plan, the best way to learn and take action and really do something for your company is by going out there and just doing it. Like I don't know how else to say it, but like going door to door and taking investor calls and talking to experts in the industry and getting random ass people on the street in the Bay to try my product was the best way to learn. That's the way you progress and move forward, is just by really not only putting yourself out there, but just really like going out and doing it instead of like sitting in your room and trying to plan every single strategic step. So yeah.
There's not much I can add to that because I agree with everything that they said, and I think something that usually happens for first-time founders or people that are pretty new in the founding space is they chase perfection. There's no perfect time, right? And I think if you sort of chase perfection, or we always say don't fall in love with your MVP, for example, don't fall in love with your minimum viable product because it's going to change. And I feel like a lot of people are trying to chase perfection early on, which leads to them getting into analysis paralysis, and then they just sort of get stuck and nothing ends up happening. So, you know, you just got to go out and do it. And for me personally, it was just knocking on doors and speaking to small business owners. And obviously at first, they didn't want to give me the time of the day, but then I told them I'm a student, even though I wasn't. I graduated, but it worked. So it's all about just sort of going out there and, putting yourself out there. I think that's a good first step.
I really like all of this. I also have nothing more to add. I want to give all the panelists one last chance to add anything that you might have wanted to know when you were first starting your business, or even now, like something. I have a lot of great advice that I don't follow myself. So I want to give you one last chance to either shout out your own business or give some advice to everybody here.
For me, I would say, it's, you're only as good as your team around you, I think, at least from my own experience. So, make sure that you build a strong team that believes in you and believes in your mission just as strong as you do. I think that is very important because I guess early on, I thought I could do everything myself. And, you can't. I mean, you can't. If you think you can do everything on your own, I'm gonna tell you right now, you can't, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's the amazing thing of having a team that can sort of complement you. So I wish someone would have told me that earlier on. But that's the beautiful thing about the startup space, right? Sometimes you don't necessarily have a playbook, and that can be both a blessing and a curse. But the beautiful thing in that, you get to actually go out there and learn and figure things out. So if you have something which you believe in, you can't stop thinking about it, just try it. You only have one life to live. Go for it, and you will learn as you go. Just enjoy the space and just be kind to others as well. That usually helps. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course.
So even from a very early standpoint, I think that at least what I've noticed in the past year while I was at Berkeley is that people usually get into startups or start a startup for the wrong reason, and not to discourage people from starting a company, but if you don't have a personal passion, or if you don't have a personal issue, or if you don't have a real connecting stream or whatever it is to your company, later on as you're building, you're gonna more than likely fail, because there's gonna be a lot of times during that initial journey where you'll want to quit so bad and you think it's going to shit. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I can say that. But you're gonna question a lot about your life, and should I even be doing this anymore? Should I be doing it? But the reason why you'll be doing it is because you have a connection to your startup, and you love it, and it's your baby. And if it's not, and you're just starting it for money or whatever it is, like this idealistic, I'm a founder and I raised this and this and this and I did this, that's not gonna get you that far, because along that journey, it's gonna be so hard, and you're gonna question anything and everything. So I would say it's important from the beginning to stay grounded for the reason you're building your company. Like, what is that reason, right? And knowing that and making that clear between yourself and your co-founders, for example.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Sorry, Max. Sort of piggybacking off what he said, it has to hold value beyond just money. At least that's what I think. And then I would also say, don't be too hard on yourself trying to become something that you've never been, right? And there's different ways to Rome, right? My way to Rome had a lot of layovers, and you guys should expect a lot of layovers too. But just sort of trust the process, work hard, follow your plan, not your mood, because it's going to change, and try to be as optimistic as possible. I mean, my mom used to always tell me this when I was in school, and I said I couldn't. She said, you got two options, either positive or negative. It's pretty easy if you think about it, right? So I always chose to be positive throughout this journey, and I think, just keep some of those things in mind, and go for daily walks. That's very good for your mental. I just wanted to add that. Yeah.
I'm going to take this as an opportunity to talk a little bit about SVIC, because I do not have a startup that I'd like to give you guys advice on what it's like running right now. For any university competition, and this could be a SpartUp competition, it could be a college business competition, it could be one that's hosted outside of San Jose State, which, if you guys aren't aware, there's a lot of university sponsored and led entrepreneurship competitions that you are just eligible to apply for because you're a San Jose State student outside the CSU program. In fact, like 2 years ago, we had students who were finalists for like a Washington State University entrepreneurship challenge, and they won a bunch of money. Like, so anyways, please look into those resources and talk to Eli and I if you have any questions about that, if you weren't aware of that. With any university challenge, and especially something like SVIC, where you're able to speak with multiple judges, there's a wide pool of competitors, creating your own rubric and criteria that you're going to be judged on, if it isn't clearly provided for you, is paramount to your success. And the rubric that SpartUp uses, that I think covers the way most university competitions work, is feasibility. So is this thing possible? Desirability, is someone gonna want it? And viability. So essentially, are you gonna be able to, feasibility, sorry, I'm like totally all over the place. Viability, are you gonna be able to be the team to build it? And is this gonna be something that's gonna be able to sustain success, right? And so, I think having those criteria and being able to be critical with yourself, and this is a ideation level competition, which should actually be very like low barrier to entry, exciting for you guys. This doesn't have to be something that you've made any real progress on. This can literally just be a good idea that you have with a plan for how you would commercialize or monetize this product or service. And so if you are lacking in feasibility, desirability, or viability, tweak your idea, tweak your target customer, tweak your product market fit pitch to make it a little bit more favorable in your side, right, when you look at that rubric. I think the other thing to remember too is you're being judged by a set number of people who are real people, and they may not even be subject matter experts on anything related to what you're working on. So try and pull on as many emotional threads as you possibly can, right? So like for the concussion coach helmet product, right? It was like one of the main founders, he was a football player, and he was like, look, my mom would have loved this for me when I was a kid, kind of appealing to a parent who just wants to have some additional peace of mind to protect their kid who's out there playing a fairly dangerous sport. And so I think being it like the koala tree, honestly, terrible product. There was like no, like koalas can't pay for anything, right? Who's the customer here? Like there is no real customer. But being able to say like, hey, I have this really cool device, it's gonna be able to save koalas' lives while there was like wildfires raging in Australia at the time. A lot of people love that. So try and make it something personal that people can emotionally attach to.
Thank you so much, y'all. I want to end on one last thing. I think I need to encourage you to shout yourselves out a little more. I want to give Malik and Audie a chance to give one last shout out to what they're building. How can the audience get involved? How can they help you?
I usually like to tell people to think of whatever it is I'm doing as Humans of New York meets MySpace, but for small businesses. For people that don't know that reference, you guys have some time to Google it. If you guys want to get in contact with me, you guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn. Stop me after this, and I'll provide you guys with all my details and stuff like that. And any questions you guys want to ask afterwards, you can email me, reach out to me on LinkedIn or wherever, and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Well, since you gave us permission to shout out, we recently launched our first SKU 2 weeks ago. We're going to be distributing the product around the Bay Area. So what I mean by that is Oakland, San Francisco, and Berkeley. I apologize, we're not going to be on this campus right now, but maybe in the next few months we'll see what happens if the demand is there. But we're launching a matcha latte and a mango turmeric SKU as well this fall. Each bar is 20 grams of protein, 7 to 9 grams of dietary fiber, and it's made in Los Angeles, not in my dorm anymore. If you want to reach out to me, LinkedIn and email is probably the best way to reach me. LinkedIn's pretty easy, just search on my name and then Berkeley and it'll come up. And then you can email me at adityabanerjee@berkeley.edu. And I'm always happy to answer questions or anything you need help with, so yeah.
All right, let's give one big round of applause to our panelists today. Thank you so much, everybody. I promise to let you get pizza now. I'm gonna put a survey up on here that I would really appreciate if everybody could fill out. It is the same one from last time. It helps us get some knowledge about the people in the ecosystem, what you all need help with. It helps us a ton, and it will help us help you. So I really appreciate if everybody could fill this survey out, if it works. Without further ado, please meet some people, get some LinkedIns that you haven't had already. Come talk to the panelists, chat with Max or I, ask us about SBIC,
Yeah, sure.
ask Dr. Basu about SBIC. We're all happy to help. Thanks, everyone. Pizza's over there, by the way. You can find Jalen. Show her the completed survey.
Nice.